Okay, welcome, welcome. The channel is called Africa Reimagined. My name is Kwame Gonza. As always, today we are here to discuss the topic of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. The Africa Continental Free Trade Area was launched in Accra, and a lot of African countries signed on. This is a project on which majority of the African countries have signed on, and therefore it was declared operational. The African Continental Free Trade Area has a secretariat in Accra, Ghana, and the Secretary General of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is called Wemekele Meni. But as we know, this project, which is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, is part of the projects under the Agenda 2063 of the African Union. And in turn, also, the African Union added the sixth region. African Union has around 5 regions on the continent: the north, south, central, the west, and the east. But it added the sixth region, which is the region of the diaspora, or the diaspora region. And therefore, this is one of the reasons why I invited Miss Teresa here and other Africans who will be talking to discuss, what is going on with the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Because in the past, we have seen the Secretary General visiting different countries. He has been to Mombasa, he has been to Mozambique, he has been, to the French countries, he has been to Togo and met different stakeholders, major the heads of state. And so we want to examine today what is in it, what is in this Africa Continental Free Trade Area for us. Like I said, we will have Malet, who is going to join us also. Miss Teresa, I want to welcome you once again. Miss Teresa is a business coach and at the same time a life coach. And therefore, I would advise those who want to understand anything about business and need some help about their lives. She is the right person to go to. You can send me a message and then I'll be able to, you can send me a message. I'll be able to convey to her. Maybe she will allow to give you her contact so you can speak to her. My colleague and comrade in struggle, Malet Baicha, who is from Ethiopia. We struggle all together, in liberating our continent, of course. We are always putting out a narrative that fits our continent. And therefore, I would like to jump in straight in this discussion about the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Malit, I want to welcome you
Thank
to
you.
this discussion. And Mrs. Teresa, once again, I want to welcome you, and I would just like to give you the platform so that you can say a few words to the audience, to our audience who are watching.
Oh, thank you very much, Mallet and Kwame. I am really honored to be here because to talk to the young is really the most important thing nowadays, because we have so many people of my age group who are talking to each other and repeating things that we've been saying for 20, 30 years. So I'm privileged to be here amongst you two. Really honored. So for me, I'm a practical person. I'm always about what works in the engagement of our people and what doesn't work, and what we really, need to do to get clarity. Now, if we have been proven, if it has been proven all around the world that industrialization hasn't worked, why are we, the new kid on the block, going to pick up that nonsense? That's my first point. Why would we do that? The evidence is out. The rest of the world is in poverty. The people in, there's a place in America, it's called Philadelphia. They are on the street. They cannot rent. They have no accommodation. They're living in their cars, they're living on the street. Epidemic of drug taking is rampant across the Western world. So their project hasn't worked. So for me personally, I do never pick up other people's rubbish and try to promote it to young people. So that would be my first shot into this conversation, is that it hasn't worked. It has failed everywhere it has been. And now they're coming to a new land to sell snake oil to people who understand how to live and who have been here from the beginning and is still here. So we know how to live. So we certainly don't need people coming with ideas. What we need is for people to listen and to create opportunities to learn so that we can share the wisdom of our ancestors. So I'll stop now, but that's really what I'd like to start it off with.
Oh, thank you very much, Madam Teresa. So I have actually a few questions to ask from your opening, but let me first give the platform to Malet to make a few opening remarks. Malet, the way you see the African Continental Free Trade Area, what is it? You know, what is in it for the youth? If you look at what is going on, you know, they have been moving all around the continent. A few days ago, we had a meeting of the Africa, you know, Development Bank in Accra, where we had a few presidents in there, and these are some of the things they were talking about. Where do you think the African Continental Free Trade Area fits in today in the economies and how they are structured? If you look at the structures of the African economies today, most of them are still tied to the Western world and the Western outlook, the Western way of looking at things. Do you see the Africa Continental Free Trade Area succeeding when our economies are still structured in a manner that they are tied to the Western way of thinking?
Thank you very much, Kwame, for the opportunity, and I greet everyone here, the audience, and I greet also my sister Teresa. Yeah, Kwame is, as he said, he's my brother from another mother, my Pan-African brother. We are here, as he said, together in the struggle, and I'm happy that Africa Reimagined, you know, have started this. You know, I know that Kwame has a lot to share, but also engaging people like this be good. Yeah, so going to straight to the question, you know, the use the African Continental Free Trade Area, let's just see them separately and then try to link them, you know, like the use by itself, I mean, it's an undeniable fact that it consists, the young population of the continent is, I think, if I'm not mistaken, more than 65% of the total population, which is, you know, the driving force. And then, you know, the use is the present, the use is also the future. And also the youth has, you know, the young people have also, this is the section of the society that is facing many challenges, like say it, lack of access to finance or unemployment, many challenges that they are facing compared to the rest of the world. Now, coming to the African Continental Free Trade Area, I do believe that this is a Pan-African project, and one of those few projects, at least this biggest Pan-African institution, namely the African Union, has achieved in terms of not really putting it on the ground, but at least launching it. It's part and parcel of the Agenda 2063, which is, you know, plan for the next 50 years, being launched in 2013. And one of those one or two projects that it has launched successfully in less than a decade, where the rest are still stuck, the rest of the aspiration are stuck there. Now, what relates these two things, the use and the African Continental Free Trade Area, you know, according to as per my reading, it's always to limit myself like that. As per my readings from different research, the African Continental Free Trade Area is believed to be one of the projects that's going to tackle that the young people is facing. That's in terms of unemployment, having access, in terms of helping the youth to become an entrepreneur, whether it is in small scale or bigger scale. So this is where it will help the youth, and this is where the youth can fit in this project. However, it doesn't mean that it's just there and the youth can access it. I mean, let alone for the youth in terms of country, it is really hard. I mean, with the lack of the union of governments of the continent, it will be hard to achieve what it puts at least on the paper. But I am also a believer of, like, let's say, for example, the African Union, it's the biggest Pan-African institution, but has it been doing in the past decades, a Pan-African project? I mean, except that during the starting time where our ancestors, our, forefathers have been successful in terms of liberating the continent from colonialism. Compared to that, it has become, without any reservation, kind of an agent for neocolonialism, because its programs have been running by the support or sponsorship of the donors, which are these international organizations, and they have a long hand in terms of how to implement its projects and everything. However, the power is within the people. So as long as, there are things to be done on the policy making, on the government level, and also by civic society organization, and in terms of individuals or media, we have to be able to sensitize the young people what it is the African Continental Free Trade Area is, what kind of opportunity that it will bring to the people. Then, the youth they have been so creative. For example, it's just recently, maybe a few months ago, that an African organization or a bank, if I'm not mistaken, I will be happy to be corrected, that in West Africa, they came up with a Pan-African payment system, because that was the biggest challenge in terms of how to do transaction, because like you have to go through a third country to use those European euro or dollar currency to do your own transaction in the continent, which neither of them are currencies in the continent. So they came up with this Pan-African payment system that will allow countries to transact with their own currency. So this kind of creativity will come from the people once they know, they start to value what it is. So we do, regardless of, by whom it has been sponsored, or as far as I know, it's a purely an African idea, but before it's hijacked, it's up to us to claim it, to own it, and to come up with a solution so that it remains, having that value of benefiting the African people before someone else does. Let's bring it, let's create awareness, let's sensitize the people, then let them come up with a solution if the government don't have one. So that's where I kind of stand.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much, Malet. You've spoken about a few points there: the youth unemployment, the interference in the continent by external powers, and the hijacking of the project. And these really have been of very much, a big concern, even to myself, because most of these meetings, which concern the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, you see that countries like Britain, are very present. Most of the European countries are very present. Even the United States itself has been very present. The president of the European Commission, Ursula she directed one of her subordinates that the person should pay close attention. In a memo which she passed, she was trying to get information on the different regional blocks in the world. And she sent this memo to her subordinate, one of her subordinates, and say that the person should pay extra attention to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. She was saying that the person should find out what is happening in China. The person should find out what is happening with the United States. And then she said that we should pay extra attention to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area because of our strategy, our long-term strategy of having a one-on-one relationship, our long-term relationship of having continent-to-continent, trade, the European Union and Africa. So they should pay extra attention to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Actually, she did not say they should pay extra attention to the United States and China, but she said they should pay extra attention to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And in the past, we have seen that where the Secretariat of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is, in Ghana, companies like Nissan, Volkswagen, Toyota have rushed in the process of constructing this secretariat. They have rushed to put up their, assembly plants. They want to assemble vehicles in Ghana. And what troubled me actually mostly was that the technology which they are bringing to assemble in Ghana, not even to manufacture, but to assemble, is outdated technology. They are bringing internal combustion engines to assemble them in Ghana, not electric cars, to take advantage of the African market. And what I'm seeing is that they want to say that these assembled parts, which are manufactured mostly in Europe, to take advantage of the African market. And things like industrialization, which should have been looked at in the beginning, critically, because I believe that Africa is not industrialized enough for us to have enough to be able to integrate our market. If we are not integrated industrially and we don't have enough industrialization, then that means that the foreigners are going to come and take advantage of our market. And they have started, like Volkswagen, like I mentioned, Volkswagen, Toyota, Nissan, all these guys have come to Ghana to establish assembly plants and not manufacturing facilities, actually, whereby they will manufacture all the parts like glass, windscreens, engines, engine blocks, and all the other parts which are, concerned with making, manufacturing cars as complete kits, but rather they are bringing knockdown kits and then assembling them in the continent. Let me come to you, Madam Teresa. You mentioned an issue about industrialization. You don't believe that the model of industrialization that is happening in the West and has happened in China applies to Africa. And when you spoke about industrialization, for a long time, I've been thinking that we need the industrialization. When you look at people like Nkrumah, say that we really need industrialization on the continent. We need to leapfrog. You need to industrialize before you can catch up with the rest of the world, or even to attract mass wealth. And so I thought about it in the form of ideology when you're talking about capitalism and socialism, because capitalism encourages a lot of exploitation, even of the poor, because it looks at society as an endlessly growing entity. And so I bought so much into the idea of Nkrumah that we need to understand how industrialization should work so that we don't pursue endless growth, because this endless growth is what leads to indiscriminate exploitation and unending exploitation. But when you spoke about industrialization, that we don't need industrialization that has happened in the West or in Europe and the United States, and then has happened in China. Can you expand a little bit on what you meant by Africa doesn't need that type of industrialization?
Yeah, I will. I mean, look, it is very clear to people of my age that there was a time when we didn't have this modern connection and information was difficult to get hold of. We are now in the information age. We can get hold of any information we want to see what the results of an action is. When Nkrumah was alive at that time, there was a different time. The message of somebody who has passed has always got to be taken into the modern context. It cannot be just fixed because somebody said it at a time when the world was different, that we should copy it. We have to use intelligence to work out, is that the right model for today, given we've got reset, we've got the European Economic Forum saying they're resetting the whole world. Now, they're also robotizing, what they call it, industrialization through robotics, the whole world. So that is taking away the jobs from manufacturing. When Britain sculpted out all of its manufacturing jobs, they went to service jobs. And the service industry was all around finance. It was all around selling through marketing, creating intangibles that people wanted and desired. Now we've got a whole mechanism of media that is telling everyone this is the standard of that we should be living. If you come to the UK, you will find that there are poverty spots. People, even in the country they're advertising that is so wealthy, cannot feed their children. Parents are going to bed without food. Their children are missing meals. There's a high percentage of children on what they call government benefit. We've got inflation happening where people cannot afford utilities like gas and electricity. This model does not work anywhere. When they industrialized Europe, they took people off of the land when they were self-sufficient, when they were growing their own food, and they created an industry for capital. Commercial capitalism is what we're talking about. Commercial capitalism is a different model from capitalism, and they're using our sweat equity and our capital of our lifetime to make profit for themselves. Now, there is no way we should be telling young people to copy this. If you haven't got a job, that's not really something that we should be concerned about. We should be concerned about, why do you think you need a job? We need industries that are labor intensive. We have the highest number of people in the world and the least amount of opportunities for work. And we're telling people we need machinery to replace the people to do the work. The reason why people haven't got any jobs is because we've got machinery doing a lot of the jobs. We used to have local industries that were fixing things for the local people, region by region. Now we want to have globalization. We want rice in this place. We want wheat in that place. We want corn in this place. And we're doing one product for an area. And everybody has a monoculture. The thing, nature doesn't grow like that. Nature is the example. Nature, there's a thing called forest garden. Everything has a place. Everything has a right to be there. All of the young people have a right to be able to be working, but working for the benefit of the community that they're in, not the benefit of some foreign community who is living, let me break it down a bit. When you have enough food and money, you start thinking about stupid things, foolish things, because your survival is now not the issue. Most people are still on survival. So these two conversations don't meet. You cannot be telling a person who cannot feed themselves that industrialization is a good model, because when they go to the city, the first thing they're going to have is a problem. Where's the food coming from? The countryside feeds the city. So why are you emptying out the countryside and putting everybody in office jobs where they're not producing food? And then you're going to have a problem. And then you're going to industrialize the natural land where food could be grown by skyrise and all these artificial buildings. I mean, common sense tells you this doesn't work. People need a place to live. People need food. That's the basic survival thing. They need clean water. And unless we have those things, we should not be getting into industrialization conversation. The West is a parasite. They come into a situation and they take it over and they find everything that is alive and they eat it. And then they leave and go somewhere else. Now they're coming to Africa to do that. They knew Africa was poor for how many centuries? Because they were the one that put it into poverty. It's not a new understanding. Let's help Africa. Why are they coming today? What do they want today? They know that the young people, because all of their country have got old people, the young people of the future that they can brain drain is in Africa. So they come in with a snake oil story and the fake industries to tell the young people, to pollute their mind, to say, you can join this game of gambling. And some of you will get through, a few of you will get a good standard of living, and the rest of you will be on the scrap heap. The rest of you won't be skilled, you'll be de-skilled. You won't even be useful to your community because you won't know how to grow food. And you potentially will be homeless because we're going to be making sure that we put the rent up on any property that you live in, because we want the industry of rentiers to come and make money. Now, I'll give you an example. I used to live in a place called Tottenham. I used to live in a place called Jamaica as well. But let me give you the example of Tottenham. I was born in the Caribbean. So it's in my blood, this understanding. This is not a fake, reading of a story. I come from the people who work together to help each other. That was my first beginning when I landed on the planet as a baby, as a child, and grew up into that environment. So I understand community. There's a place called Tottenham. They have a football club there called Tottenham Hotspur or something. Now, they had, on the high street, they had this club, and it was been there from 18 something. And, people go there, they get a lot of money, and they got so much money that they decided to make a fantastic, massive building. They built it on the high street. If you ever see this place, it is like one whole block of a street taken over by this very, very tall circular building made of glass. Fabulous 21st century building. Across the road from there, nothing has changed. All of the shops are exactly the same. Not one penny has been sent to those shops to modernize. And you can see what happens in this model just on that street. You've got this £1 billion, if not £2 billion building that is raking in money from the fans, from whatever else they're doing with contracts. And on the other side, you've got shop fronts that has not had a lick of paint for 30 years. Now, that is taking people's property, taking people's land, and living off of their assets and telling them that they're benefiting. How are they benefiting? How is that possible? If you've got this, you spent all that money and it never occurred to you to take some of your workers to modernize even the superficial front of those buildings. They are exactly the same as they were 30 years ago. And there's 50 yards, if not 10 yards, separating the two. That's what happens in this commercialized capitalism. So we need another model, and we need to tell the youth that this model is dead. It is not useful. Policies that are created by people who are living middle-class lives. They don't have the problems that the other people who are struggling have. So they can't make policies because they haven't got the lived experience to understand what should be put into the policy. And also the actual industries that could benefit. In the 2000s, they had the cricket going to the Caribbean, and a lot of businesses from the UK went. Oh, the Cricket World Cup, no. The local people weren't invited to those meetings. It was the foreign businesses who were invited to those businesses because that was the group of people that they wanted to come, and on top of the local merchants to take the profits. So this model is already been proven. The other thing is what companies have got the assets to be able to compete with a foreign company when it comes to competition in the marketplace. I'm just going to reel off a couple of headings. There's a consumer issue around who can afford, the car that you talked about, if they're living in just, food in front of their mouth. They haven't got any other means because all of the industries have been broken up, have been thrown away because they said it wasn't valuable to these people who didn't recognize that the core of a society is the people. The other thing is custom barriers. Now, they call it the 18th century Berlin Conference. We have different languages. Each country has a different language, a different custom. That is going to be a challenge. And those things are not going to be done overnight. We've also got lack of capital. I haven't heard about how many billions is going to come into this for the ordinary people to be able to have money to even set up an entrepreneurial idea, unless they're going to be coming into debt, and then they're going to be borrowing and paying interest. And we know what interest has done to Africa already. Then we've got lack of wealth or asset-based businesses. How many businesses do we have that can compete, that are employing hundreds of people that are going to be able to compete across the regions? We've got small little, potential businesses. How are they going to compete? Where are they going to get the infrastructure money to compete? Then we've got the economic biases. If you invent something, you've got to patent it. And then you've got to make sure you safeguard it. You've got to put the patent in all these different countries to make sure somebody doesn't steal it. So your innovation is going to be taken. Then we've got the poverty acceleration, because I talked about the urbanization. People leaving the land and going to cities, and then they find that there's not enough work. They're underemployed and they're struggling to make ends meet. And they've also got the responsibility back home still that they left behind to come to this grand land. And the business structure and foundation. I spend every day, all day, talking to businesses, and the basic thing is people don't understand business structure. They don't understand how the real structure of a business, a successful business work. So that's an education piece. None of these things are going to be spread out on big scale. China, the people over there, from what I've seen, they are suffering because what they're now experiencing is no control of their own lives and somebody else telling them what to do. So I'm not going to go on and on and on. But for me, we need another solution, and we need to tell the young people, don't follow what the old people have done, because it hasn't worked. And the time has told us that, and we need to start again. Thank you.
I mean, in other words, you advocate for a system which is sustainable. Is that what you were saying? Because when you look
localized and sustainable, everybody can fix an industry in their local community. Who needs what in your local community? Why do you have to go to the city and leave your local community? Why do we have to have brain drain? Why is your labor have to be used in some foreign company to becoming like a machine when your local community needs your service? Why can't we use a think tank with our local community to build those ideas locally so people can stay where they are and to own their land?
Absolutely. And this, if you look at what you are saying, is the same thing which our ancestors were advocating for. If you look at people like Kwame Nkrumah and all the other, Nyerere even to a certain level, he spoke about communalism, that we should form clusters of production in the different regions of the country so that people don't have to come to town because they are looking for jobs, but rather the jobs should find them in those villages. And even in Nkrumah, when you look at Ghana and another gentleman called Dr. Milton Obote of Uganda, they went to these villages and they set up cooperative unions in the different countries. I mean, in the different areas of the country, districts and regions of the country, to be able to, to have people stay in those areas and develop them and continue to grow their food. But the exploitative system of capitalism, when it consolidated its position after removing the opposition in Africa in the 1960s, for example, when Nkrumah was overthrown and then other heads of state were overthrown, those who were significant in independence and trying to push for the continent to be able to integrate and have a planning, have an economy which is planned, they were removed. Then capitalism had its day, and it continued on to encourage the exploitation which we are seeing even today, that is going on all over. Mallet, let me come to you. When we look at the mode in which the Africa Continental Free Trade Area today is being implemented, you see that recently, in January and Feb is when the border between Uganda and Rwanda has been opened, but it has been closed for 2 years, even though these countries are signatories to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And in Ghana also, we have had them have issues with Nigeria, where Nigeria had closed off its border and saying that its market is being flooded with foreign foreign goods. Do you see that with this kind of attitude, whereby we don't have a body that is instrumental in implementing what these people have signed on, we will be able to achieve the objectives of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that these countries, the various countries, will not disregard what the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is about?
Thank you, Kwame, and I would like to thank you also, Sister Teresa. This is really what I would love to have a panel as opposed to one-to-one, because there is always a lot to learn from people. And really, thank you, Kwame, for bringing Sister Teresa. Yeah, that being said, I unecho myself. Do you hear me good?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you perfectly.
Okay, so yeah, there's always pros and cons for anything. I mean, even for medicines. But I would like to really focus on the positive side of it. There is a challenge, and out of that challenge, there's always an opportunity. The examples that you gave between Ghana and Nigeria, or Rwanda and Uganda, and countries being afraid of being invaded by foreign products. I mean, what is foreign products? I'm sure there are things that Ghana do not produce, and things that are goods that are produced in Nigeria, and there are things that are produced in Uganda, and that are not produced also in Rwanda. So we should be able to take off those advantage. I mean, we have been, in terms of, if we are talking about invasion of foreign goods, is it better to bring from outside, totally out of the continent, from Europe or India or China, as far as China, or is it better to have that transaction with the neighboring countries? I mean, the choice is up to us. So there's always a gap that needs to be, that we can close in terms of, I really don't want to focus on the negative side of it. And if we look at also what, I mean, I do agree 100% with Sister Teresa that, although I really need to read or inform myself a lot about it, communism and, this sustainable growth, that people not necessarily living, people don't have to lose their area or village. I do agree with that, but we are also talking about the young people who are in the city, who went to education, who went to university. They are there without a work. It will bring also, it does the African Continental Trade Area is also it will bring, when they see the opportunity to jump into manufacturing, to jump into the ICT world, to jump into different opportunities. I mean, every year thousands of people graduate from my country and they don't have a job. So we really, yes, there is a lack of also access, but and finance. I mean, I might be ambitious, but I cannot really, that's my way of thinking. I cannot give up on the Pan-African projects just because they are going to, in the fear of they are going to be sponsored or hijacked by the New York. It's up to me, it's up to us to prevent that, to be a vanguard of, preserving that agenda for our own benefit, and, to try to bring a solution instead of waiting for the leaders, who are just working, who have totally no sense of Pan-Africanism. It's just up to us to claim it and own it and sensitize me and you. Okay, we have this Pan-African platform. Let's teach people, and also let's bring people like Sister Teresa, who give us the different side of it. If there is anything that we can benefit from being behind, meaning the continent Africa behind modernization, because that's the whole world. That word by itself is very controversial, but by being behind, from modernization, is that we can learn from their mistakes. So we can bring people, okay, look, this is what it does. As of now, people living, Sister Teresa being in England and seeing what's really happening by this whole industrialization or modernization thing, then this is what people in Africa have to learn. These are the lessons. So how can we move? So there's always a space for everyone, learn each other, and thrive forward. And once again on that border opening thing, Uganda and Rwanda might open their border, as you said, might have opened their border now, but tomorrow when there's a conflict, they might close it. But the thing is, there was this thing that I learned from one sister. They did a research, and once it was open, they allowed, I think, in the southern region of Africa by SADC, free movement of people actually who migrate from Zimbabwe to South Africa have become very low. So once you make things free, then there is a tendency of, for other competitors to come, for example, now bringing this to the business. Oh, okay, there are a lot of, maybe let's say that we are receiving, because our borders, we have a road opening between Kenya and Ethiopia. So when we see that there is maybe a lot of tea bag, or I don't know, tea leaves, tea being imported from Kenya, then maybe that will also sensitize my farmers here, who are more of, Ethiopia is known producing coffee, and also to work on a tea production or whatever. So there's always an opportunity, and once you make things free, it will allow people, to come up with their solution. But also in terms of, I might be here, I might be jumping one topic to another, but I'm trying to reflect also from what has been raised by my sister here. For the lack of finance, yes, there is a lack of business. I mean, how much of the Africans are into business? As you said, there are those Volkswagen and other car companies who are now trying to use this opportunity. But also, let's work on, I don't think Africa has a lack of finance. There are many rich people inside and outside, but let's bring them to the table and let's use them. The African diaspora. We have also billionaires in the continent, like people like the one who produce cement in Nigeria, Dangote, and others. Also, we have one in Ethiopia. Let's use them, let's use them and try to make them invest on the youth who come up with a solution. For example, these who are being creative of eco-friendly products, so that they can invest. At the same time, we are caring for the environment, and also we are giving them their share, and then we are creating. I mean, we are. I wouldn't say, as they say, to kill by one stone, two birds. That's not a nice one, but maybe in one pot we can plant a lot of trees. So I always see the positive side of it, and I do believe there is a positive side of it. Yeah.
Thank you, Malet. Actually, just to be clear, I didn't say there is no positive side of it. The African Continental Free Trade Area as a project, I believe that it is a very good project, which has the potential to spark Africa's growth, rapid growth. But just like Madam Teresa here said, we need to implement it in a very organized manner, and then a very well planned manner, and in the right way. There is what they call a solution, and then the solution. Okay, so I know this may be confused a little bit, but I have always believed that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is a solution, but it is not the solution, because of the mode of implementation in which the approach that is being carried, the approach that is being carried on or carried out. I do appreciate the challenges which the African heads of state face in implementing such projects, that like they have the challenge of the different groups. They have like two challenges, major challenges. You have your people on one side, and then on the other side you have the imperialists who are pressurizing you to act in their interest. Okay, so I do appreciate those, but it doesn't mean you should abandon the principles. The principle is that the state should be instrumental in setting the pace. If you look at the United States itself and Britain, people who went out there in the 14th and 15th century and 15th century to explore, the Vasco da Gamas and all the others who went, the Columbuses, all these guys were sponsored by the state during that time. The states were run by, these kings, kings in Portugal, the kings in Spain. You see, all these guys, they are the ones who sponsored these voyages whereby these people went out there and then they explored the world. After exploring, they came back. So to a certain extent, I see that the African leaders have abandoned the principles and they have neglected the wisdom of our forefathers. If you look at what the things which Nkrumah did and how he understood society and how analyzed society and said, seek ye first the political kingdom and all the other things shall be added unto you. This project is very good, and myself, I see it as good. There is a lot of products which are manufactured in the eastern part of the continent, and there is products which are manufactured in the western part of the continent. Like Malet, you spoke about the vehicles, and we spoke about Volkswagen and Nissan, how they have come on the continent. We already have vehicle manufacturing companies on the continent. We have a company called Kantanka Automobile in Ghana. We have another one called Inoson. But it is very disturbing that a company like Kantanka, which is manufacturing vehicles in Ghana, was neglected, you see, and then they decided to bring in all these foreign companies. And yet, the capitalization of Kantanka to build more factories in the continent and manufacture most of the parts which are required could have been a more viable option for Kantanka to take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area of the market. And then the president, him, to be able to send out envoys all over the African continent to lobby them, like how the United States does, how the European countries does. They do. When the Europeans want anything on the continent or anywhere in the world, they send their ambassadors, envoys, to go out there and lobby on behalf of Boeing, on behalf of, Airbus, these companies which are manufacturing companies, are manufacturing companies for airplanes. You will be surprised that Ethiopian Airlines, for example, in Ethiopia, that before it buys those planes, it will put out its intention out there in the world. And then you will see that these companies who are contending for the manufacture of for the selling of airplanes, the Airbus and Boeing, they will start reaching out to the Ethiopian government through their ambassadors. You will see that the American ambassador will pay a visit. He will put in an interest. He will express interest in visiting the president, speaking to the president in Ethiopia, or speaking to the prime minister in Ethiopia, because they have seen that there is an interest here. And this is not done, in Africa. That is the irony of it, that when President Akufo-Addo in Ghana, for example, or Buhari in Nigeria, saw that the African Continental Free Trade Area has been ratified by majority of the countries and it has come into force, you do not see them sending envoys to lobby on behalf of Inoson automobile company, automobile manufacturing company, or you don't see Akufo-Addo sending envoys all over the African continent to lobby the African countries on behalf of Kantanka Automobile that, buy from us maybe at least 500 pieces of the vehicle, buy from, each of the countries. So this is what I'm talking about, that to a certain level or to a certain extent, the African heads of state have neglected their duty on the, on the continent. They have neglected, their work, and they have neglected the work of the state, and they are always speaking terms which are manufactured in the United States and European capitals, terms like sustainability. Not that sustainability means nothing, but if you are putting it in practice, terms like privatization, like the private sector should be leading everywhere. Private sector should be leading. But the private sector in the terms of Africa, in the context of African development, when they are talking about privatization, in this era whereby we have European domination and European systems littered all over the continent. Privatization in Africa means let the Europeans dominate the African resources and the African market. That is what it has come to mean. So whenever you hear a president of the African continent talking about, privatization, the private sector, private this, private that, it has come to mean that let the Europeans dominate the African market. And so this is the problem I see that is going to face, or definitely is facing, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, that the African leaders as a political entity, they have neglected their work, and they have neglected the understanding that the state is supposed to be at the forefront. I mean, China has shown us the example that the state is supposed to be instrumental in our societies, especially the societies that are behind in industrialization. They are behind the other countries. Okay, like Africa is behind almost now 3 industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution, which happened in Britain, the second industrial revolution, which happened in the United States, and now the third industrial revolution is right now going on in China. And it's like we are behind. And for us to be able to catch up, even though we want to build it in a sustainable way, like Madame Teresa here said, we have to put the state out there because it has the resources. I want to quote what, or paraphrase what one of the gentlemen said. One of the richest guys in Ghana, he's called Sam Jonah. Recently, he spoke in Ghana, and he said that that Africa and Ghana, the economy of Ghana is dominated by foreign companies. And he was lamenting, and imagine this is one of the richest people in the country, okay, with worth more than $400 million. So he said that the economy in Ghana, the Ghanaians don't own the economy. Africans don't own the economy. They don't own anything in the telecom sector. All the telecom is owned by foreigners. They don't own anything in the mining sector. And he said that this is troubling. So the private sector, like I said, it has come to mean foreign countries and corporations, they should come and dominate the African, economies. So this is where I see that they will continue to do this because they are already present on the continent. They will continue to do this and they will continue to do this and take advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and claim that they are manufacturing, products in Africa. So the African companies and the African products. So I think that the state needs to intervene and be very instrumental and not neglect, this trade, but be instrumental. And what I see is that for us to implement, there's no way we can implement if we don't have a union government, because now you have 55 leaders on the continent, each with different ideas going in different directions. So now you have a project like this project, like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Then if you have 55 ideas, all of them, everyone pulling on their side, then it becomes a problem for us to implement, even though we have products that are manufactured in the western part of the continent, southern part of the continent, which are not identical, but can be transferred to the different parts. And then we increase our trade, which will be beneficial to the people. I want to welcome you, Brother Nate, once again. Even though you are a little bit late, I appreciate you for being here. We all appreciate you for being here. We were continuing with this discussion and deliberation on the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And as an African diaspora, do you see that this project, the way it is structured, will be able to benefit the African diaspora? If you put everything in context that is happening.
Well, first of all, my apologies for not being here from the start. Let me apologize to my sisters here as well. And but first of all, give thanks for this invitation, Brother Kwame. It's an imperative conversation. And thirdly, before I get into, I could say yes and then get into it, but before doing so, I'm just mindful of Sister Mallet, Sister Teresa, so I put her hand up. I had a feeling you wanted to chime in, you wanted to give some commentary, so please go ahead first of all, and then I'm happy to come in and answer that question or follow on from the yes. Sister, my love.
Okay, thank you. Welcome, brother Nat. Really, thank you. Yeah, so if you allow me, I will just go and quickly reflect on what Kwame said. I think so. To protect the local business that is where we need to engage the government. We should not just leave it. This is why I say we should not leave it just there. Okay, the government is not doing this. The African Union is not. I mean, let's take in our own hands of our own problems and try to come up with a solution. And I really would like to ask if those car companies, the local car companies in Ghana, if they have come, whether it's one or two or three, have come together and approached the Minister of Trade or try to talk to the president and asked now the structure of this strategy now that you have laid out to do it on their behalf to their government. I don't know. I mean, I really will be happy to answer. For example, in Ethiopia, what has been done is, I remember, there's a ban of used clothes to encourage the people who manufacture in the country. And there is, it didn't go that far, but we also have to work on, our own products. It could be by saying buy Ethiopia or buy Africa, so that people can be encouraged to buy their own products. It might seem just, some kind of event or something, but we really have to bring our own 2 cents on the table. And I'm sorry, I will keep on insisting on that. If there's a solution, let's focus, on the solution. In terms of privatization, yes, it's true. It's one of those kind of symptoms that you have to be worried when you hear it a lot on your own local media. That means there is a push by the Western government talking in the back door to your prime minister or president to sell one of the successful national companies in your own country. For example, in my country, there's Ethiopian Telecom who had, it's up to now, actually, it's the only telecom company. Only recently, Safari came and started, warming up to start working to operate in Ethiopia. And there was also a talk to sell when Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed came to power. Actually, he put the Ethiopian Airlines, one of the most successful not government, it's a national company, a national company, to put up for a sale, to privatize. And I remember on Twitter, social media, where we came after him that no, you can sell anything, but not the Ethiopian Airlines, because everybody sees the Ethiopian Airlines as a national flag carrier. We know how successful it is. And everybody regardless of our crazy and political differences, but everybody was on board to protect that company. And actually that was out of the table. We managed for the government, slowly, just to change that agenda. First, they gave a cover by saying that no priority will be given to the Ethiopian the Ethiopian business people, to the workers there, to the the Ethiopian Airlines workers, and blah blah. But yeah, that was out of the table. So sometimes you think it's impossible, but you can bring a solution once you sensitize people, because there was a talk. What they do is they test you. Before they do anything, the government will not just go on and say do something. They tested us by saying, oh, okay, we put up this and this and this ABC company for privatization. So the people let alone, like Ethiopian Telecom, we left it alone because we know that it has a weak side. So we do believe that a competitor has to come in. But for the Ethiopian Airlines, everybody was on board to change that agenda, and eventually that agenda.
So Ballet, what you are saying is that we should apply more pressure on the existing structure. We should apply pressure.
Information is power. If we are maybe now few people can see us or something, but we should constantly bring it to, we have to empower people through information. If they are not informed, what can they do? Nothing. And you cannot blame them. Yeah. So I stop there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam Teresa, you wanted to say something?
Yes, I did. I mean, this is quite a difficult conversation. The reason being is because age comes with wisdom. And once you understand the game, you don't no more put up with the rubbish. Now, young people have not gone around to get at that point where I believe people of my age is at. Now, to be positive, the only reason that you wouldn't be positive is if you gave up hope. When I speak, I'm not speaking because I don't have positivity, but before you can sort something out, you've got to have clarity of what's going on. And what's going on is a group of people has gone around the world and has taken everybody's resources to modernize their own country, to keep their standard of living very high. And there is nothing that is being done to stop them. They've used the money they've got to make armies, to make sure that even if you're complaining, you cannot come and compete with them. That's a clear thing we have to understand. Secondly, you have to know the enemy. You don't just know him when he's on a good day. You have to know the enemy across years. They've taken 500 years to educate our people on their system. Our people have gone to their schools and have come out with their thinking. Now we have to decolonize that mind to be able to even get to the creativity of what our people can actually think about. Because at the moment, they're thinking of a colonizer solution to an African problem. Now, I'm saying top down is not going to work because we have not released the individual to their own empowerment yet, because we haven't got across the piece a program for education, for decolonizing. Politicians are not business people. There is no way a politician can solve a business problem. They're professional politicians. They're not business people. And I want to just say this because I don't want to go down this route, because these are the kind of thing that gets me really angry, because the young people have been lied to. They've been told we've got allies and we've got people that care about us, and it is not true. All of the wealthy people in Africa are owned by somebody in the West. They're no independent wealthy people, because if they were able to be like that, they would have been taken out a long time ago. And this is a fact that people need to understand. All the names we can mention, go and do the research. Dun & Bradstreet, Company House, do research. We need an army of researchers to be able to educate our people to understand what danger we're in. These people do not mean to give us the continent. They mean to take the continent. And all of these politicians, you need to be lobbying them about getting educated and telling the truth. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Teresa. Thank you, Mallet. I do agree with you. Mallet, we really need to increase the pressure and actually for us to pressurize the existing structure, which I call the neo-colonial structure or the neo-colonial governments all over the continent, and the African Union itself, which has turned itself into a neo-colonial organization where France can come and do whatever it wants. We need to increase a lot of pressure. And one of the things which we have done is that we have put up some petitions working together with the PLO Lumumba Foundation. We have put up a petition for the demand of a union government. The other petition is about the demand for a single passport for all Africans. They should have a single African passport and a single currency. And then the other petition is about establishment of a war. Establishment for the African High Command by stopping the wars on the continent all over, especially starting from Cameroon, where it is happening. Brother Nate, I want to come back to you. Do you see in 2014, Haiti had applied to be part of the African Union? Do you see that this Africa Continental Free Trade Area would have benefited Haiti, looking at the fact that it is the first African country in the, across the Atlantic that got independence and has been marginalized by the same countries for the last period, the United States and France and the European countries. They have been marginalizing it. Do you see that Haiti could have benefited from this trade, if the way you look at things? And generally, let me just add something. And generally, the African diaspora, do you think that this trade they will benefit from it the way it is, and Haiti would have benefited from it if it was part of the African Union?
It's interesting. Well, yeah. First of all, it's interesting that you use the example of Haiti, and it ties into your initial question that you asked me. As an African diaspora, or an African outside of the continent, would we benefit from this African free trade? And I think that, as I was saying, the short answer is yes. It would be, which is the reason why my theory is this is the reason why Haiti did not manage to actually get the agreement to be part of the African Free Trade group. And I think that's normally an indication that they're onto something good. They're onto something that would make sense. But I just want to draw my reflections that I think will tie into the reason why I say yes, the African diaspora would benefit. It's not as simple as that, though. But my reflections come from what our great sisters have been touching on. I hear from Sister Mallet very simply of how we need to find our own solutions. That's something she said quite clearly. And from Sister Teresa, we know from her wisdom and experience that awareness, understanding the terrain, understanding what we're up against as a global African people is something that we need to start. That's the starting point. And when Sister Teresa went on to say, well, part of that awareness is understanding, understanding and accepting that there is a group of people who for a couple hundred years have gone around the world and exercised imperialism. To this day, they do it in different forms and shapes, but that's what's been going on. We first of all, so that's what chimed in when I heard Sister Teresa speak about awareness, but he put the question across. Why am I do apologize. Why am I turning to
absolutely that's okay.
Yeah, okay, that's perfect. Sorry. Okay. Why am I turning to the question or the statement that Sister Teresa is putting out, which is the awareness and that we need to understand that there's a group of people, Caucasians or people that were referred to as Europeans, that have for a number of hundreds of years have gone around and raided. They've taken like a parasite, from what Sister Teresa mentioned, advantage and, quite frankly, pillaged through certain areas. And that has enabled that needs to be acknowledged first of all. That must be acknowledged first of all. And the reason for that is so that we can work out what groups of Africans in their private entities, in the state, in the community, accept that as a truth. Once we work that out, I hear what you said, Brother Kwame, with regards to an African Union, and I don't disagree with you, but I think there's a time for that. And the things that came to my mind, and this ties in with the reason why I said yes, we would benefit. African diaspora would benefit from the African free trade, but to what expense? Who would suffer as a result of that? What we're saying is, African diaspora, you come and take advantage of this free trade. The African diaspora, like the Africans on the continent, vastly are in the wrong mindset. And I tie that into the question. for for the listenership, for when we have conversations, Brother Kwame, with our sisters, Sister Mallet, Sister Teresa, we have an understanding and an acceptance that this is a truth. There's a group of people who continue to exercise imperialism. There are that needs to be extended and first of all understood amongst the state, those within the state, those within private sector, and those within the community. Only until then that we have a general consensus of agreement of what's going on, the awareness of what's going on, and then an acceptance of the issue that this is causing, and then further to that, what we're going to do about it. So I say yes, African diaspora can benefit, but the expense I think would be too dire, because my mindset, what I share with all of my sisters and brothers, anyone that's interested in the liberation, unification, and upliftment of our people, is that we are up against something, just as Sister Teresa said, just as we agree as a group here,
Yes, absolutely.
we are up against, we are up against something with a group of people who are not going to come across any lightly with our approaches. So I land with this, because I know I'm going on. It's this. When you say, Brother Kwame, and as we have many a conversation about how do we apply pressure on the system, or how do we apply pressure on the neocolonialist governments, whether that's on the continent or over here, that's an approach we need to take. I see that as 50% of the works that needs to be done. However, the other 50% is based on systems, mindsets, attitudes, and understanding we must, as a group of people, build ourselves. We need to start setting examples. And so those words, systems, attitudes, values, principles, those are the important things to me. Coming from the mental health side of things, you know me, my brother, is that there was a real focus on knowing that we as a people across the whole of this earth are in agreement with certain things. And if we're in agreement, then we can move forward. And it always goes back to that. But we do agree that there needs to be a pressure applied to the system, as it is already to people right now. But there needs to be effort and gall and so much preparation and planning and doing for us as a people to start building. So that when we set the example, the governments that we're applying pressure to, the private sector people, the big honcho organizations, if we do go down that route, people are already, it may be not of one's preference, but that's what our people are prepared to do. It's that they do it knowing we've all agreed upon certain principles, that we have an example set over here from the people who are building. And when we apply pressure to the system, you don't have to look too far to see what our solutions are, because we're building it as we speak. When we start building our own systems, having the right attitudes and infrastructure, and I said I'll land, but I land with what Sister Teresa and Sister Mallet were alluding to, I believe. They could correct me if I'm wrong, which is there is something about sovereignty. We have to be autonomous. The great Marcus Garvey always emphasized of self-determination, self-actualization, self-sufficiency, and having the ability to know that we can do it with or without them. And that might seem naive as we look at it in the grand scheme of things, but whilst we're applying pressure, we must be growing that other side of it. So I land with that. Apologies on going on, but
it is okay, my brother. Thank you very much. So you emphasized on the importance, the same point which Sister Teresa was emphasizing, of sovereignty, of self-sufficiency as an African or as Africans when we are implementing this trade. And then you spoke of establishing systems, and then our attitude has to be changed, definitely. Even when you look at people like Nkrumah, he spoke about the change in attitude in 1963 when he was speaking about in his Independence Day speech in 1957. He said, from now on, we must change our minds and start thinking like independent people. You know,
Brother Kwame, sorry, my brother. Just adding, because the great Kwame Nkrumah was prepared to put his neck on the line to be an example of change of attitude, of going back to Sankofa, you know, going back, taking what is good. Like what Sister Teresa, I was listening a bit earlier.
Let me ask you a question. The way you see the African leaders today, do you think they are up to that level of change of attitude with the African Continental Free Trade Area, which was launched definitely in July last year? Actually, it was launched in July last year. It was supposed to be launched in January, but it came into force in July last year. And the way you see them, do you think they have established the principles and attitude and what did you speak about, and the system which will be able to run this organization or this project which we are talking about, the Africa Continental Trade? Like all of us have said, all of us agree that this is an important project. But one thing we do not agree on is, and in a space in which I'm very much in line with you, is the place, the space that the way this project is being implemented is not the right way. The principles is like they have been neglected. The principles, especially that, like how they were laid out by Dr. Kwame Nkrumah and Honorable Marcus Garvey, sufficiency. They have not emphasized sufficiency. They did not take stock of our industry, the industries which we have on the continent. Our leaders did not look at this. But let me come back to you on your comment. Do you see that our leaders right now have the principles, the attitude, and the systems have been established on which the African Continental Free Trade Area? And then I'll follow up on that with another question. If you look at what Dr. Claudia Anderson has been doing in the United States and emphasizing how, Africans or, Black people, they are, different names, the Africans in the United States and whatever, they are called different names, African Americans, Blacks, other people, they call themselves descendants of African slaves and stuff like that. Do you see that our leaders have that established attitude principles and they have established the system? And also, do you see that if Africans in the United States were able to operate in the way Dr. Claudia Anderson was speaking about this situation, establishing of industries and cooperating with Africa, they would have, in a certain sense, benefited from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area?
Again, I think it's yes. I've seen to your first question, I've seen leaders in government positions on the continent have the right attitudes, want to apply the right systems, and want to go about it that's going to benefit the community. They get assassinated. They will be they are exterminated or will be. So there are, but the moment you're onto a good thing, we've seen it with so many examples on the motherland, they get executed or silenced, or they are silenced basically. And it goes back to, again, what Sister Teresa said of those that have the oligarchs, those that are in control of system that is running currently on the continent and across the world. Those Europeans are not prepared to allow, they are seeing great leaders pop up all the time, I think more regularly now. However, they have to do something about it, which is end their operations, because it would lead to their demise and our upliftment. It's as simple as that. So yes, there are, but this is why when we don't hear anything, I'm very cautious to think nothing's going on. And what do I mean by that? I mean, when we don't hear anything positive from these governments that are doing positive things for our people, it's very easy to think that they're just not doing anything right, or they're doing the wrong things, or their agenda is against us. However, it always makes me think of Castro from Cuba, and you know, that those regions, those Fidel Castro, those Chavez, where they presented themselves differently in the state or leading up to the state, but the moment they have control, the moment they have some power that can really affect change, they then switch on their actual agenda and they get on with what needs to be done. Probably even knowing that they've only got a short period of time before the system, the oligarchs, then exterminate them. But enough time to get themselves in a position of power where they are almost being like a yes man, but they get to a point where they then just switch it up. Now, my ideal, if I could dream it up and had control, is that that's a strategic approach which could be applied. Or maybe, which is there are certain leaders within governments now that are wanting to make real proper change that's going to positively, genuinely benefit our people, but they're waiting for the right moment when there's enough of them to actually not be dropping like flies when the powers that be realize that they're onto something that can benefit them. To answer your second question of the benefit to, you know, our sisters and brothers in what we call America, and following Dr. Claude Anderson's approach, again, yes, they could benefit. But even with Dr. Claude Anderson's powernomics approach, the mindset is something which I would be wary about, because are they doing that for Africans just within America, or are they approaching this powernomics with the benefit of a what some servant leaders refer to as global approach, something that's going to benefit you locally and globally to your African brothers and sisters across the globe? So again, they could benefit, and probably Africans within America would benefit the most, especially if they got Dr. Claude Anderson's, you know, strategy in process. It's a question of minds. It's a question of moralities, values, principles, and sure enough, and you know, we know our elder buddy also well. He always emphasized to me, my brother, and I've heard our elders say this before. It's about symbols and laws. If we can really affect change of showing our principles through our symbols, then people will either embrace them or you'll spot them out when they're not for that. Yeah, and then people will naturally, and as I said, I know this is my ideal, a dream of it, but people will naturally gravitate to the principles, and thus whatever they get into, even if they're the most embedded in the system person, they go by the principles of, well, Africans have been oppressed and dehumanized for hundreds of years. They continue to be. They are now and for the future. Africans are the original peoples. We've been here since the beginning of time. We've achieved great things. We've brought civilizations into being across the globe. And we are resilient people that have a lot to offer, but we've not got the opportunity. If we have those three principles running across the globe, symbolically pumped into people, like continuously shown, then there will be, and that's why I believe the petition that you've touched on and that you've brought up, we really need to, and I put it on myself actually, we need to really push that, because that's setting out some clear guidelines of affecting change to the system, the established system. And you know me, my brother, more revolutionary than the reform of it, but it's still something that everyone can band around to really push on. The other step or another approach is that we have the systems, we have the principles that are displayed in symbolism that are continuously put out to the people across these mediums that we're always seeing now. Technology is key, from what You know, going again from what Sister Teresa said. So it's, you know, I've gone down a segue of conversation, but to answer your questions, yes, there can be change. I mean, there can be a benefit to the Africans in America with the African free trade and looking at the Dr. Claude Anderson approach. And yes, there has been individuals and maybe small groups within the neocolonialist system that have maybe silently or every now and then have shown themselves to want to care about the people and do something that's going to benefit the community. They either remain silent or they get, you know, they get silence exterminated. So we've come a long way, my brother. There's a lot more for us to journey on to, and we're getting there.
Okay, thank you very much, Brother Nate. The perspective you brought to this conversation, yeah, the points you made, I think, are very important. That you summarized up the whole thing which we have been talking about. That we have to have systems, especially first of all, established. And however much good the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, we welcome it. We see that the systems are really shaky, and the attitude of the leadership also is really a problem. Is currently lacking when you're talking about, you know, sustainability. The African leaders, the systems, they have not established them, but their attitude also is lacking. That it is neo-colonial. The mentality is neo-colonial. They are not looking at sustainability. They are not looking at the benefit. What is going to be the benefit of this trade to the Africans? Because if you have not established the system and you don't have the right mentality, then definitely there's nobody. There's no, even if you have the principles, which we agree, they say they agree themselves and say that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, for example, has the code of conduct, which we would call the principles, but we see that many times they have not obeyed these principles themselves. They have not followed these principles. They have been closing borders, but we will continue to push forward. We'll continue to push forward and put them under pressure, especially to implement the things which they have said themselves that they are going to do, the things they have put their hands on and signed into force and said they are going to follow them. We will continue to, to push them forward, like Malet has said, that we need to hold them accountable. We need
we will, my brother. We will. The optimistic thing that I look at is how we're going to go about doing that. And I have to take yourself as an example, my brother, right? And I'll say it profoundly here, because for our sisters and brothers around the world, we know what we need to do. The question sometimes is how. And because I take what you said of we need an African Union across the globe. However, there is so much, and you mentioned it, there's so much difference across the African globe, and that's something we can embrace. We can embrace that. But I go back to yourself as an example. What's going on where you are in the region of Ghana will be very different to what's going on in the region of Uganda. Yeah, or there will be some differences, there will be some similarities, but there is commonalities amongst us all, and that we can embrace. And it goes back to the principles, it goes back to strategies. But yourself as an example, my brother, when you start to create your own enterprise, when your enterprise starts to run its own systems, then you have created almost your own governing organization. When you have the ability to demonstrate that you are now having a systematic self-governing enterprise, that's something that you've done on a macro scale that you can scale up, on a micro scale that you can scale up to a macro scale. And what it does, it presents yourself, and many other sisters and brothers. And as Sister Teresa kind of mentioned, the young brothers and sisters that are with that, they've always had an entrepreneurial mind, especially those in the continent. That's who I'm referring to here. What do I mean on enterprise? They are making business, whether that's on the street, but they're making some exchange of business themselves. Now, being able to show that you can demonstrate a system, a self-governing system, a system that allows you to work in cooperatively with other organizations, then puts you in a strong position to be able to, when you're applying pressure to the government, that we can see very much over here, there is a cohort or even one individual, as I say, like yourself, my brother, where your enterprise is developing and growing to be able to be an example. Once you show that you're an example, then to me, it means you can now put the solution to the powers that be, those that are in the government, and show them this is how it's being done. Now you can either adopt this or not. The worry that we have is when you present to them how you're doing things, or even when we're appealing to them, if they're ready, if they're good and ready and want to, they can eradicate and destroy what you're trying to operate as well. So again, for me, it's about creating multiples of our enterprises and seeing how we link them and connect them together. And then, we're approaching it as a force, as a with oneness, with unity. Even if it's just a cohort. But Kwame, if you got 3-4 other enterprises which are significant and important to your organization, your own enterprise, where that it's a mutual benefit of just business that you do, then you can approach like what I think it was Sister Malik that was touching on it with regards to why don't 2-3 organizations come together and approach the government? That's a powerful look. And she was asking, she's not sure if that's been done. But if it had been, then that's 3 big organizations, just like what you was mentioning happens in China, I believe, where big tech organizations, they come together to make a mega big organization.
So I think yes, I think you are right. You are right. What I think she mentioned is a very good way of looking at it. But if you look at the companies in the African continent, you can see that they don't have a lot of experience working outside their various countries because of the way our economies were structured. If you look at how the African economies were structured, that the continent was fragmented. Of course, all of us know the Berlin Conference and all that. So the various companies on the African continent do not have experience of working abroad, and especially if those companies or the entrepreneurial organizations have been started by Africans themselves. They don't have experience of working beyond their borders, beyond their indigenous. Even some of them, they don't have experience of operating in all, like for example, you say Ghana, operating the whole of Ghana. They don't have experience like that. So you find that they don't have access to these tools. They don't have access to this information whereby they will understand the geopolitics of the continent, and then come together and then approach the government and say, we want to be players in the Africa continental free trade area, or we want to be players on the international stage when it comes to business. And that is where I see that the approach of China in empowering its various companies in the country, I think it needs to be, we need to seek it very much, so that our companies on the continent, they are operating in an integral manner. They are operating as an integral part of our political system, just like what you see in China, just like what you see in Britain or America. I gave the example of America. When in Uganda, the establishment of the oil pipeline, the East African oil pipeline is going on, which is going to pass from Uganda up to, Tanga, the port, pass through Tanzania and then go to the port in Tanga. But when the United States saw that they are going to carry out this project, and we are talking about also a refinery in the western part of Uganda, General Electric, an American company which is working into all those things, manufacture of things like generators and all the other things. It reached out to the through the ambassador of the United States in Uganda. They went together to the president in Uganda. You see that the United States, whether it is Airbus, whether it is Boeing, when they want to sell planes, when any country in the world says that they want to buy planes, they're looking at buying planes, even if it's 10 or 5 or 3. Immediately, the ambassador of the United States, will go to the president in that country and start lobbying him to buy the planes from Boeing. Or the ambassador of the European Union will go to the president and lobby him to buy those planes from France, from the European Union, to buy Airbus instead of Boeing, the American. So you see that interaction. But the African businesses have been sort of disconnected from the political class. Now, the political class and the political organization, to a certain extent, has become now an oppressor to the businesses, to make them retarded, if you like, that they are being destroyed almost. Like I give an example of Nigeria and Ghana, that they have automobile companies. But instead of our leaders capitalizing these businesses, we have seen the United States, capitalizing companies, the financial industry in the United States. General Motors has been given money, numerous times. Tesla itself, which we are seeing has exploded, is the leader in manufacturing electric cars. It got loans from the United States when it was starting out. So all these companies, they got loans and they were empowered. They are being empowered to take over the world by their various governments. So what we are seeing in Britain and in Europe, we are seeing in the United States, we are seeing in China, is not happening. And then they're telling us that they are opening, Africa Continental Free Trade Area. All of them are saying they agree to it, but they are doing opposite things which are not beneficial to the African businesses. So that is my worry. I'm not saying that
no,
me myself,
the worry
I see
is,
I see the Africa Free Trade Area as a very good thing. Is a very good project. Is a very potentially beneficial project, but the context in which it is being implemented today is what is troublesome. It is what is problematic, that you will find that it has not benefited the Africans on the continent, and it has not benefited the Africans in the diaspora. Even though the diaspora would have come here, how I look at it, they would have come here to take up products and go and sell them in their communities, in the African communities in the Western world, like in the United States or Britain. The Africans in the diaspora would have been coming to the African continent to buy those products, even if they are agricultural products or manufactured products, and then sell them in Britain, and sell them in Europe, sell them in America. But if the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the African heads of state have not looked at things in that position, that the trade is supposed to benefit Africans first, then the foreigners are going to take advantage of it. And that is what we are seeing even today, that the foreigners have already started taking advantage of it by coming here to assemble products and claim they are manufactured products. They have been manufactured in Africa. So that is, the challenge I see, that it will face this, and then it will become.
I share your worry. Yeah, I share your worry of that exploitation, and that is that's what's happening. But and what I see, what is key is that where we are, my greetings, Sister Teresa, in timely fashion, in coming back, in that where we are in the diaspora outside of the continent, there is a potential opportunity which always makes you think of the need for urgency. Obviously, taking the right time to plan things out and prepare, but a sense of urgency in that whilst European powers or Western powers are trying to take advantage and exploit, getting the first bearing of fruits from Africa, as we've known, as what's been going on, there is an opportunity here, and I mean here in the UK, even, where only for the fact that we don't have, I'd say, enough fully yet, but I like to be optimistic and say we're on our way, enough minds to create a mastermind of approaching the motherland, I don't want to say similarly, but with as much strength. And this is what many servant leaders, but I think of Dr. Claude Anderson and Marcus Garvey.
I think what, sorry for interrupting, but
yeah.
I think what you're saying is what Dr. Claude Anderson has been talking about, aggregation. He has been saying that the African Americans should not be asked whether they want integration or segregation, but the point is aggregation. They need to come together and form a unit, a block, whether it is voting. The African Americans should vote together. So in that spirit, I really understand and appreciate what you are saying, that the diaspora need to aggregate themselves as a group to a certain extent, which is beneficial to all the group. I know all of them, you cannot bring all of them together. Like, for example, the whole population of the African Americans, which is 41 million in the United States, and you bring them together, it is very hard. But you can bring together a group that will aggregate itself to the benefit of all the other people who have not come together, and then approach like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area or the diaspora in the United States, and then the Caribbean, and then those ones in Europe coming together in a certain way and say, where do the diaspora fit in? This is what we would like to do. Yeah, so I do agree totally with what you are saying, that they do not only need to aggregate themselves as the diaspora, as the African diaspora, but also the African Union itself needs to recognize that the African diaspora need to be part of this project.
Listen, whether the African Union recognize us or not, we come together, or we don't. Whether it be in across the nation, the different regions where Africans are. But it's that we don't waver on our mindset, which is we're only making aggregation because we know what the number one priority is. And I'll say it here, and then I know needing to hear Sister Teresa, which is the mindset is Ubuntu. The mindset is one needs to be making sure where I am in this fairly stable place we call Britain. They try to put great in front of it, but that's nonsense. But Britain, I'm not in absolute poverty. I may be in a bit of relative poverty. I just need my basic needs sorted. Because even if I was thinking selfishly, my sole purpose would be to make sure my basic needs are looked after so that I can then feed my motherland and do what needs. We need land accumulation. And I've heard Sister Teresa speak about this before. We need to get the land. And that land needs to be ideally on the continent, and that needs to be ours. So my responsibility as an African diaspora is make sure that I've got enough to live, breathe, and function and do what I need to do so that I can give my contributions to the motherland, Ubuntu. And even if I was thinking selfishly, it's because the motherland being fed is going to feed me. And it's just so unless we have the mindsets like that, or as we're getting those mindsets like that, let me be optimistic. We're going about it with that Ubuntu mindset, you know. That's how I said. Let me stop there.
Okay,
Sister Teresa.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, Sister Teresa, I think we are coming to an end of our program. I think you can make your final remarks. It has been really a very educative, engagement for us to reflect on this project that is being currently implemented, that was allowed to come into force last year, January, which is the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Please, can you, give us just a few words of your final remarks?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Brother Nate. That was awesome. and Brother Kwame. So I am a part of Emoja Generational Wealth, and we have established an Ubuntu principle in finance and business so that we can go back to the traditional ways of doing business that is not contaminated by the Western models of greed. Now, Emoja Generation Wealth, we have a website and people can come on a Tuesday and be a part of our free and open discussion about financial literacy, because all of the situations that we have is around what the West has done. Now, we recommended the destruction of the Black civilization and the richest man in Babylon books to read because they're really good books to understand. But, you know, when Brother Nate was speaking, and he's young, and Sister Mala and yourself, for me, it's been a privilege to be here. But I want to say that before we can look at solutions and copy other people, let's make sure we understand what's been done to us. And the children under 10, you know, let's get them a different education so they don't come out saying, I'm unemployed. Let's, you know, help in the school and in the education. Let's decolonize in the education, because if the people that colonized us are the ones that's teaching us, then we're only going to copy them. We don't need to be copying anyone. That's my final point. What we need is to have a clean space where we can be free to talk and investigate. And every top-down thing that comes takes away the autonomy of the community to find its solutions. Top-down is never going to be the way to help. It's always bottom-up. Ubuntu is the principle. I am because you are. And then how can I make you wealthy or better? And by doing that, I myself are going to be wealthy and better. And that's the mindset. And I want to land on this. You cannot help the Western people because their behavior has proven that the levels that they can go to is so far removed from the African that we really have to work on ourselves and leave them to sort themselves out. And we must have land. We were taken off of land. And if I come to Africa, I have to have a passport, I have to have a visa, I have to have permission. You know, even that basic stuff has not been sorted out yet. But we've got on top of it this monster called trade. It's like giving a train to these people to now go around quickly and take resources. I land there. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Teresa. You really made some powerful closing remarks there. Brother Nate, you want to make final remarks?
Yeah, you know, that when we think of Ubuntu, right? It is speaking of the oneness. It is speaking of us knowing that we're different. We've all got different strengths and weaknesses to contribute, but bringing it all together is critical. And I take heed to what you said, Sister Teresa. I think it's so important that we recognize how the oppressor or how the colonists, the imperialists operates and how they're doing what they're doing. And then as you're saying that, I'm then thinking it's even more treacherous and entrenched within the continent, where they don't even, they look like each other. So that's even more trepidatious and you know, difficult to navigate around. But there is Ubuntu principle, and there are principles that are set out that not even that we need to copy, that are ours, that we can embrace, that are our codes of conduct, so that we can recognize how a Western type of mindset is operating across the globe, so that we recognize how we're going to deal with that. And we are making our own autonomous, our own self-determined routes to our progress. Yeah, I think of the fact of a takeaway for us all is, and I'm just echoing what Sister Teresa just said, is reading the destruction of the black civilization and the richest man in Babylon. There are simple principles that are obtainable, and it's almost like a child in a sweetie store when you think about the plethora, the whole variety of black principles, values, stories with lessons, messages that are within our ancestry, and that our ancestry has given us. So we've got it all there. We've got all the pieces. We need to put it together. That's what I always think about. So give thanks. Let me rise up, Sister Mallet, Sister Teresa, Brother Kwame, my brother. We continue, right? And I'm like, I'm excited. It's like, oh, I cannot wait.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you for those remarks. Thank you for emphasizing Sister Teresa's point, Madam Teresa here of Ubuntu. I think there's no way we can operate if you don't go back. If we don't go back to the understanding of our ancestors, and this is where also I've had a challenge with the existing system, that the wisdom of our forefathers of I am because we are, of the wisdom of taking care of the community first, and which wisdom has even refused to go out of us. When you go to the diaspora in the United States, in Britain, the Caribbean, all of them, when you go to the average person, they care about their community than their individual, being, even after 600 years, 500 years of programming under, operation and European education, you can say that when you go to our people, that principle of Ubuntu still is there. It's like it was, inserted within their hearts. Like when we are born, it's like we are born with it. It is within our blood that we are supposed to take care of our communities first. Sister, Mallet, can you?
Brother Kwame, sorry, Sister Mallet. I just have to quickly say, remember, if we talk about repetition and mindset and conditioning, remember that the African has been existing for thousands of years. So the Ubuntu principle suffocates any European or non-African principle, and that's why it's deep within us. Because as Kwame said, you may not be born in Africa, but Africa is born in you. You may not be born knowing Ubuntu, but Ubuntu is within you. And many of those principles that are set upon us. So it's like, we got to give our ancestors some credit. They pounded into us things that we have just not tapped into. We've not pressed the buttons to activate, which can't even be, it cannot be penetrated by the non-African repetition. It's protected. That's how I see it. So just emphasizing on that point, my brother. Sorry, Sister Mallet.
Absolutely. I am because we are, and we are because I am. So it is a two-way street. In Africa, we don't have we should not have individualism when people are talking about capitalism and then communism, because it is a two-way street. So we are supposed to take care of each other. Sister Mallet, can you give us your closing remarks within this deliberation? I think it has been very rich. And we agree that the Africa Continental Free Trade Area should be implemented within the context of Africanism and Pan-Africanism, and for the benefit of Africans first before it should benefit the foreigners. So, Mallet, can you give us your closing remarks, please?
Yeah, okay, thank you very much. Of course, as Brother Nat said, it also gets me excited every time we have this, African issues talked by our own people, yeah, like I get anxiety before the session starts, and then after, once you sit behind that screen, there is a lot to learn. So a few things. First of all, let me just take you back, because I thought it will be really relevant to bring it on the issue of fear for invasion by foreign products. I wouldn't even call it an invasion, a product coming from Uganda or Kenya. But if that is so, let it be. There was this meeting with the previous Prime Minister, Meles Zenawi, the late Prime Minister, where a group of Ethiopian shoe manufacturers came and they were asking for a ban. There was a big, still now importing of shoes from China at that time. This is like 10 years ago, or even more than that. So they asked him that there should be a limit or some kind of policy to be in the government. Then he asked them, is there any manufacturer, producer of shoe right now here, from those of you who are sitting with me, who is not wearing a shoe that came from Italy or any other country? Are you wearing your own shoe? And apparently that, like, I think 100% of the participants were wearing, you know, a foreign produced shoe that's out of Africa. So then don't come and ask me for the people who are consuming it to not to import a quality shoe. So you have to level up your own competition and start to produce a quality shoe. So what actually it worked, and actually it increased the quality of the shoe in the country to the extent that we started to export shoe outside of Ethiopia, and then it created also a lot of partnership between Italian and Ethiopian shoe manufacturers. That's what it did. Just a quick reflection. Another one in terms of African pre-continental free trade area, and then the diaspora. I don't have so much thing to share, but I do want to say this. You know, the one who launched the Pan-African payment system, kind of trying to solve that problem of using a foreign currency, is the Afrexim Bank. So this bank is apparently sitting in all parts of Africa, like in Cairo, in Western Africa, they have 2 offices, and Southern Africa in Harare, and in East Africa, they have in Kampala. So it is, I don't, as per my really doesn't say it's really directly related, it's established to solve the issue of the problems in the African Free-Continental Free Trade Area. But when you see the timing of its launching, the free trade was launched in 2018 in March, and this bank was launched in 2018, end of 2018. So I do think it's established for that purpose. And they came up, what I see is with a solution, because it has different shapes, where states, African states, the government have a share, meaning public institution. And there is also a part, let me just allow me, sorry, I don't want to miss this, just charge my laptop, I'm sorry. Oh, yeah.
Can I just jump in here while the sister's getting her laptop charged? I go back to the point I made. Can we do the research to find out who owns these instruments before we promote them? Because if we don't, we could be promoting things that could be a part of our demise. Sorry, thank you.
Yeah, so those institutions there, like the Africa, the FDB, how do you call it? FDB, Africa Development Bank. Yeah, the FDB, Africa Development Bank, it has a majority of the owners are African. It is supposed to be.
That's not true, brother. That's not true. If you research, you find it's not true.
Yes, I did. That is the point I was coming to. Okay, it has the 20 on top of the 20 who are the voting rights. 11 of them are foreigners. You talk of the United States and Japan and China, all of them, Italy, all of them are part of that. But when you're talking about the voting powers, Africa has about 60%, 60% of the voting powers, and then the other countries have 40%. And also I have a problem with organizations like the African Development Bank. I do due to the fact that we have a lot of foreigners. I don't see the reason why people like the United States, Britain, and Netherlands, and all those ones, Switzerland, they should be in an African bank, which is very important, like that, or China. So it is problematic, and it is a problem. And that is why we as Pan-Africans have been pushing towards the indigenization of everything, that we should not allow Europeans to intervene in certain institutions which are very instrumental, to our survival as Africans. So definitely I do agree with you, Madam Teresa. Malet, can you continue, please?
Yeah, so I was saying, so this was made up of public institutions, private sectors, and then, of course, to some extent, there's also down in the line non-African private sectors and institutions, and also individuals part of it. And then another point, the third point I want to touch up also in terms of questioning the African free continental free trade area is that once you see the Western governments or institutions behind it, saying that we should see this carefully and trying to jump in, as once, Madam Zuma said, the chairperson of the African Union before Faki Mohammed, she said there is no single party, whether you like it or not. She said that the Western people will not take part in the things that are launched by Africans for Africa, because they will always see a share of something for them. So their way of approach might change, but they will always would like to take, a part of it. Oh, we can help with this, we can, but what they actually want is something else. But in other words, it also tells you that that is something that for the good of the continent or for the good of the people, because there is no way that they will allow I wouldn't say development, but economical success of the continent, because empowering and economically means, it will make eventually the continent powerful. So it is something that benefits the people. So we should just work on to claim it and own it, that it really works for our own benefits. Finally, for my own conclusion, it has sort of become kind of a ritual for me every time, whether it's I am interviewing or being interviewed, to bring this. I do agree 100% with Sister Teresa and Brother Nat, what they said, and it's important to decolonize the education and the knowledge, so that, once we teach the youth and the children, then we don't have to work on every day awareness to change a mindset that has been, completely passed through the system, that has been colonized. So if we teach the youth or the young people, I do live by the saying of Robert Nesta Marley and Frederick Douglass. So education is where we have to work on. Then we see that the continent will be just fine in the next 20, 30 decades. We don't have to teach anyone if we work on the youth. We don't need all this. Just be fine by itself, but we do have to work every day on that, and it will be up to me, up to you to those kind of national projects, things that will become that are good to the people, are not televised in the screen of their television or radio. So it's up to us to create awareness, but to do educate the youth is the most important. It's the long-lasting solution. And
thank you very much. I just want to thank our panel today. Mallet here, I'll start with you, who is the founder of Connect Africa and who owns the channel on YouTube, which is called Connect Africa. My brother Nate here, who is a broadcaster and a journalist and a specialist when it comes to mental affairs, and at the same time an African revolutionary. Madame Teresa, also thank you so much. Madame Teresa once again is a business coach and a coach in different affairs. So I want to thank you all for coming up on notice when I invited you, as we are discussing these affairs which affect our continent and our people all over the continent. We do agree with all our assertions that we need to decolonize this continent. We need to educate ourselves. We need to own these institutions before we implement big projects like the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And we need to be in the right mindset. The engagement of the young people has to be paramount, the engagement of the whole masses, instead of conceiving projects from the top and then implementing them at the top. Even though these projects and ideas can be conceived at the top, you know, the intellectuals and other educated people, people in government, business people, but they need to be brought to the ground so that people can endorse them. People have to endorse these projects for their own benefit. So I want to thank all of you for coming in to share with the audience your thoughts. And this is Africa Reimagined, the channel. Those who have not subscribed, subscribe to the channel and share this conversation. I thank you all, and thank you for coming.